The House will come to order. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. This is to notify you that the Senate is about to adjourn the special session sine die. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Representative Winkler offers the following motion.
Winkler moves that the Chief Clerk be, and he is hereby instructed to inform the Senate and the Governor by message that the House of Representatives is about to adjourn the 2020 special session sine die.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, the Senate has adjourned sine die. There is no further business that the House can conduct on its own. And so, members, we reluctantly make the motions to take the steps to adjourn this special session sine die.
All those in favor of the Winkler motion to inform the Senate and the Governor we are about to adjourn sine die, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler makes the following motion.
Winkler moves that the Chief Clerk be, and he is hereby authorized to correct and approve the Journal of the House for the 2020 special session for today, Friday, June 19th, 2020, and that he be authorized to include in the Journal for today any subsequent proceedings.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, this is a essentially technical motion. I ask for your support.
All those in favor of the Winkler motion to allow the Chief Clerk to correct the record, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn sine die.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn this special session sine die. The member from St. Louis, Representative List-Lagarde.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand before you extremely disappointed that we were not able to fulfill the obligation that I felt that we should have been able to do, and that is to provide the necessary fundings to our communities. And I would ask that however we make this happen, that we come back in here and we do the work for the people, because I gave my word, and my word was not fulfilled today. And that is very disturbing to me. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It is, first I should say good morning. As we come to the end of a very, very long legislative day and come to the end of a legislative special session, which wasn't particularly special. It actually reminds me a bit of 2020, so it's probably pretty fitting. But it is, and I agree with Representative List-Lagarde, a disappointment. I think overnight there were glimmers of hope. There were some things that were worked on. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the good working relationship that we have, and you know, I in the governor's office yesterday early afternoon laid a scenario on the table that I thought could work, and I think we spent most of the next probably 18 hours now, whatever it is, trying to put together that agreement. I actually thought we were there overnight. It was a pretty simple agreement that would have gotten some basic things done, including the funding to our local units of government, which I think was just an absolute necessity. And it included some spending things that the governor wanted, pared back, but some things that I think, frankly, in these times probably need to be done even when we have a deficit. The governor's office did come up with some savings in their budget, not as much as I had hoped, but they were able to find and have found so far about $58 million worth of reductions in spending in the current biennium. That will offset our $2.5 billion deficit. I think we can, and I think we must go further than that. I do think we probably have a little bit of spending that we need to do. But unfortunately, whatever happened overnight, and I have to tell you, I don't know what happened overnight. Caucuses seemed to go back in their corners and things got very quiet. And when that happens, it usually tells me that there was some fighting going on within caucuses about what should happen or shouldn't happen, and probably within parties. And unfortunately, I think we didn't lay down our partisan hats and pick up our Minnesota hats and do the work that people sent us here to do. And I think my hope is that we'll have another opportunity to do that because I think there are some important things that are yet to be done. Ultimately, I think it probably was a big mistake to amend on spending stuff onto the local funding bill. Maybe in hindsight, we'd not do that if we went back in time, but we don't get the pleasure of doing that. And we don't get the benefit of doing that. So I think this chamber and the legislature let down our cities and counties and townships that were anticipating some of those local dollars to help offset the expenses that they've already had related to COVID. The governor, I think, as we are in our second year of a new governor, and I worked, for the full 8 years with the previous governor, and probably as closely as anybody did, and negotiated with him probably as much as anybody did. My observations: this governor, I think, is somebody who has good intentions, but needs to engage with the legislature more. Needs to talk with the legislature more, needs to communicate with the legislature more, and not just informal meetings behind closed doors where we're escorted in at an appointment time, but out in our offices, in restaurants, in the hallways of the Capitol. That was one thing that Governor Dayton did fairly well, was keep up the relationships around here that really are required to get the business done that needs to happen. So I had a good conversation with the governor about my concerns about the emergency powers. He made comments to the press last night and yesterday. I think that he believes that there are legitimate concerns about the division of or separation of powers. I do have concerns about that. I think many of us do in here, regardless of what party you're from, whether we talk about it or not. I don't think the system we've been operating under with the unilateral power for the last 3 months is healthy for this institution. And I think I suggested some changes. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, and I'm going to work on those changes over the next days and week or weeks, and hopefully come up with a framework of something that can help us put everything else together. And that's the commitment that I'm going to make. I'm going to continue to work in a positive way. I did that, I believe, the last 24 hours. I'm going to continue to do that. But we need to do a better job together. And so I'm committed to doing that because we did let Minnesotans down. And I think this should be a learning experience for all of us because this cannot happen again. We failed to do our most basic job, and it was teed up and ready to go all night long for the last 12 hours, and nothing happened. I'm not going to get into the blame game because I don't think it's helpful. And I understand that what happens in these situations is people make a decision. And that decision becomes, do I gain more out of this by not doing something that would be good for Minnesota and blaming the other side because I gained something out of that politically? And I hope to God that didn't happen overnight. I don't know that it did or didn't. I sat here most of the night wondering where everybody was and why nobody was talking. But we'll see how people act today when they talk to the press and whether everybody's pointing fingers. But everybody should be pointing the fingers at themselves. If we get a chance to do this again, we got to roll up our sleeves and do it differently. And my suggestion is that we work between now and 3 weeks from now when the governor's required to call us back again. And we have all of these agreements worked out ahead of time. And I know sometimes it takes a deadline, and I think that's probably what the Senate was trying to do, was create a deadline. But this should be an example that that didn't work. And so let's take the opportunity to work over the next week or a couple of weeks and hammer out these differences. We were pretty close on a lot of things. We still have a tax bill to do, a bonding bill to do, and we've got to get this COVID money decided. So we've got a tall order that Minnesotans have elected us to do. So let's not miss that opportunity, and let's work together to get it done. So thank you, and I look forward to rolling up my sleeves to work with you to get it done.
Majority Leader Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, thank you, Representative Dowd, Representative Listlegard, for your comments. Anger and frustration at the failure to accomplish major progress on the main issues in front of us that Minnesotans need us to take action on is certainly warranted in this situation. We came in with a COVID crisis after a end of the last regular session, and we continue to need to address that. We have seen the need extremely starkly for significant accountability and reform of our criminal justice system. We have the need to rebuild in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We need to pass a bonding bill that will create jobs and provide opportunity and build communities and infrastructures all across the state. And though it's not my favorite, I understand that a tax bill is probably necessary in order to do that as well. That is the way this place is supposed to work. It is unfortunate that the Senate decided that 1 week was all we could muster in order to begin to address these issues, because quite frankly, they are much bigger than a week. Our members and your members worked extremely hard to put together a robust package on police accountability, worked extremely hard to put together a rebuilding package. Bonding negotiators have been working extremely hard to find a package that can work. And this CARES Act funding has been a recurring effort to find a way to get that money out when it's been sitting in MMB for weeks and weeks. So the scale of work is much larger than we could possibly accomplish in 1 week. And so I hope that this creates a pause for us to go back, reflect a little bit on the need to get the job done for the people of Minnesota, whether they're paying attention to every aspect of what we do or not. We have a vital role to play if we step up and play it. And Representative Dowd and everybody else who's continued to bring forward ideas and proposals, there is no reason we can't get this done. There is no reason we can't make significant improvements in the lives of the people of the state, all over the state, regardless of background or where you come from or what you look like. We can do those things. We have the capacity. We just need to have the time and dedication. And I hope the failure of this 1 week to accomplish that larger purpose is a good reminder to us to bring our best selves to the negotiations ahead.
Representative Winkler moves that the House adjourn this special session sine die. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails, and this special session is adjourned sine die.